Cape Town port expansion. There's been some positive developments in the port there. Can you touch on some of those and plans you have for the future for Cape Town, and then Saldanha is your other big growth area?
Okay. Certainly what we find in the Port of Cape Town is that we have two existing expansion facilities that are coming up. The first one is the announcement we've made around the cruise terminal, and that we've appointed the V&A as the preferred bidder to come and construct and operate the cruise terminal. And the second announcement or second expansion project is the fact that we'll have additional liquid bulk storage in the Port of Cape Town. And linked to the whole drive to get the ports of Cape Town and Saldanha positioned to cater for the oil and gas industry, we are in the process of refurbishing all of the existing ship repair facilities in the Port of Cape Town. That will probably take us somewhere between 1 to 3 to 4 years, and that will allow us to upgrade both the infrastructure in the repair facilities as well as make sure that we've got cranes that are operational and that all the other pumps and dock gates and everything else is refurbished so that the facilities are really up to the standard of being able to receive vessels and attract markets into Cape Town. The repair facilities in the Port of Cape Town we will refurbish ourselves, but the liquid bulk facility and the cruise terminal will both be private sector investments in the Port of Cape Town. When we look at the Port of Saldanha, the big investment will be to create the Port of Saldanha as an oil and gas hub for primarily rigs that are currently on the west coast of Africa. And to do that, we will establish 3 facilities: a dedicated rig repair facility, an oil and gas offshore supply base, and then a jetty structure where we will accommodate other smaller vessel repairs, either through wet repairs next to the jetty or through floating dock operations, where we will then have sufficient depth along that jetty to be able to accommodate that. All these 3 facilities will be made available for investment either locally or for international investors, and that will really happen over the next 2 to 3 years. We anticipate that in the Port of Saldanha, the first of these opportunities will be out in the market by the end of this year, and then we should be able to announce preferred bidders early in the new year to start the whole development in the Port of Saldanha.
And 2018, it looks like it's going to be sort of almost at full speed. What will that mean to the area financially?
Okay. Financially, what it will mean to the area is the estimated investment that we see in the Port of Saldanha. We now think will be of the order of about 13 billion rand. And together with that investment, we see a significant growth for the local economy, and more importantly, for each of these facilities, we would then require skills to get involved in the repair of the rigs or the vessels, and all of those skills we would want to source locally and allow the opportunity for the local people then to get the necessary training and to become part of this whole repair side. So when we talk about the training, there's a whole drive to create the correct skills, and we're working also with the likes of the IDZ and the South African Oil and Gas Association together with ourselves to see how we can create the necessary skill base to meet the required demands in the Port of Saldanha.
Absolutely, and we're looking at some positive slides with us being more efficient, less red tape than our BRICS competitors. What do you put that down to, and also the collaboration between government and business?
Yeah. What we've realized is that none of the developments that we do in the ports can happen by one party driving all of these initiatives. And when we look at the oil and gas and the developments in the Port of Cape Town, we have a very close relationship with business locally and obviously with our government partners to make sure that as far as possible any administrative hassles are being addressed. We also, within the ports, are doing 2 things. The one thing is we're rolling out a new system during the next year, the integrated port management system, which will at this point in time allow us to then do all of our vessel bookings, the bookings for tugs, for berths, all of those things electronically, and that there will be visibility across the chain. And we're going to link that system with the establishment of port operation centers or joint operation centers, where the whole idea is that we will rope in not only the port side but also the rest of the supply chain to have visibility across the chain, which in our view will result in us planning everything better and to timeously identify where we see potential bottlenecks in the system, and then we can fix those before cargo or a train or a truck actually get to the port.
And the new cruise terminal, how many ships are you expected to welcome monthly or annually?
Yeah. Look, the cruise season is obviously slightly seasonal.
Yeah.
So what we would have to look at is when we speak to the VNA, what the opportunities are. The numbers we're not clear at this point in time as how that can grow. But I think once the engagement starts with the VNA and we start looking at what the real opportunities are, I think what will then happen is we'll be able to and in a position to advise as to how big that growth will be and how many additional vessels, cruise vessels, we'll be able to attract and what the percentage of passengers will be that we'll be able to attract into the system.
And presumably in winter then you could use the terminal for other purposes?
At this point in time, the terminal will be a dedicated passenger terminal. So we would have to look at how the seasonal impact is going to work in the Port of Cape Town and whether there are then other opportunities at the terminal to set up a few other things to utilize that in the off-season.
And with Transnet purchasing 240 new locos, how's that going to affect the supply chain between here and Joburg and the rest of Africa?
The locos are obviously bought because of change in technology and also to make sure that we have sufficient traction power when you look at the freight rail side. So the locos will be deployed to a lot of the different lines to be able to provide an efficient service and to be able to ensure that where we have the major ports like Cape Town and Saldanha, and where Saldanha obviously links through to the iron ore chain and Cape Town links more maybe to the Gauteng region, that we have the necessary capacity on that line with the introduction of the new locos.
If we look at Kucha, ways to increase the capacity there in terms of production?
Yeah. Kucha at this point in time is a container terminal which have shown significant growth over the last few years. The bulk of that growth as the result of shipping lines using Kucha as a transshipment hub. What we are planning in Kucha over the next few years is we are in the process of establishing a liquid bulk facility in the port, and that liquid bulk facility will cater both for your normal liquid storage plus gas importation. Then the two other projects in the port of Kucha, the one is to get the manganese terminal up and running in the port of Kucha, and then also at a later point in time to create a general cargo multi-purpose terminal facility in the port of Kucha. Time-wise, we're looking at the manganese and the liquid bulk terminals to be in the port of Kucha roughly about 2018-2019, and then the general cargo terminal will probably follow, either in the same timelines or slightly after that.
That'll be a game changer for the area. Absolutely. And I don't know. Power ships. Is that going to be a reality, bringing a couple in here to help on load sharing?
Look, because of the sort of pressures on energy provision and power provision in the port, in the country, there's a whole discussion now around how can we in the interim, whilst Eskom is obviously addressing and bringing up some of the power generation units, whether the ports can play a role in getting additional capacity into the grid. And one of the options, which is something we've just started looking at, is whether the concept of a power barge that you can place in a port connected to the grid can actually alleviate that. So we're still pretty much in the first steps of trying to assess how big or small that can be, but it is certainly one of the solutions that we're looking at in the interim to see whether that can in fact help the power situation. And we're also looking at now in terms of gas importation to utilize both obviously the port of Saldanha and Cape Town as opportunities where we can import gas into the country.
And I'm sure the residents of PE will be happy to wave goodbye to the plant there and get the beachfront back.
Look, it's a development where the port of PE has progressed to the stage where we cannot really expand in Port Elizabeth anymore.
What would you use that land for then?
The land has to go through a process of being rehabilitated first, but the whole idea would be that in that area to look at more cleaner cargoes and more sort of commercial type of business. So at this point in time, it's pretty much to look at either things like automotive terminals and then general cargo terminals, and couple that with some commercial developments in the port.
And the very exciting news about the Kulamurg. What's the sort of time frame we're looking at for that?
Kulamurg is a concept that we're working on, so we don't have an exact time frame at this point in time. It's a discussion that needs to take place as to how the land can be utilized, what the best concept for that land is, and then to see how we get that integrated into the port. The land is part of obviously the Transnet stable, so that at least gives us the benefit that we don't have to go elsewhere to acquire the land, but the concept is being pursued at this point in time, so we don't have a time frame at this point.
And George Airport going full solar. Is that going to be something we're going to see in ports, more renewables?
Look, George is obviously closest port is Mossel Bay. So
no, I mean like more solar at the actual ports of Saldanha and Cape Town.
yeah, look. When we look at the development of the ports, there's obviously a role that Mossel Bay play. We don't have a port in George. It's really an airport in George. So the closest port is Mossel Bay. And as I've indicated earlier, we developed the ports as a system. So in the development that we see for Mossel Bay specifically is to utilize that more, to focus on some of the PetroSA activities, which is linked to liquid bulk, and then to exploit some of the fishing industry and some of the other local sort of general cargo type activities in the port.
And Mosgas, how many more years will that facility have on the cars? Or is that a double-ended question?
No, look, that's probably something you need to check with PetroSA. We are working with PetroSA to look at the facility in the port of Mossel Bay and to see what the next step is. But for now, we've got the import facility for crude in the port of Mossel Bay that feeds that refinery that they have there, and that is the key focus at this point in time.
And how would you say how competitive are our ports compared to our overseas competition?
I'd like to believe that when you look at it from an infrastructure perspective, our infrastructure is really at the same level as what you find overseas. The difference, I think, is that when you compare the type of business we do in the South African ports with maybe the type of business that some of the other terminals do, and the fact that a lot of your overseas terminals are maybe dedicated to one shipping line because of the fact that they have quite a number of competing ports close to one another. But certainly what we've seen in the past years is that the efficiencies have improved quite significantly, and that when you look at it both from a productivity perspective and from a perspective of the time that it takes a vessel to turn around on the port and moves out, that there's been improvements in that. We've also introduced now, to further address the efficiency aspects, programs where we're setting targets for the terminals, we set targets for road, for rail, in terms of what the turnaround time should be and what the handling rate should be. And we will actively monitor that and then have the discussions with the terminals to make sure that they're at the desired levels from our perspective.
So it's not just a coincidence that there's a traffic jam in Cape Town Harbour now?
I wouldn't know.
Good stuff. Thanks for your time, sir. Well done.
Pleasure.